I'm Bob Ross, and for the next 13 weeks, I'll be your host as we experience the joy of painting. I think each of us, sometime during our life, has wanted to paint a picture.
Few television shows have left a mark quite like The Joy of Painting. Premiering in 1983, it introduced viewers to Bob Ross, a soft-spoken artist whose calming voice, happy little trees, and simple painting lessons turned public television into a place of comfort. For millions, the show became more than an art program. It became a refuge where mistakes were simply happy accidents. But behind the peaceful landscapes was a fascinating story of military service, relentless work, business success, and lasting cultural impact. Today, we're exploring 13 surprising facts about Bob Ross and the remarkable legacy he left behind. 1. From drill sergeant to gentle icon. Long before Bob Ross became television's most calming presence, he lived a very different life. For 20 years, he served in the United States Air Force, eventually rising to the rank of Master Sergeant while stationed in Alaska. In that role, Ross enforced discipline, ran inspections, and made sure strict military standards were followed. He was the kind of authority figure many young service members feared, the one who demanded precision and wasn't afraid to raise his voice to get results. Years later, Ross openly reflected on that chapter of his life. He described the routine of correcting mistakes, enforcing order, and pushing recruits to meet expectations. Over time, however, he grew weary of the constant pressure and harsh tone the job required. His strict reputation even earned him the nickname Bust 'em Up Bobby, a name that feels almost unrecognizable compared to the gentle artist the world would later meet. But Alaska also gave him something unexpected. Surrounded by vast mountains, quiet forests, and endless snowy landscapes, Ross found the inspiration that would later define his art. Those scenes became the foundation of the peaceful worlds he painted on television. When he retired in the early 1980s, Ross made a simple but powerful promise. He would never raise his voice again. Unlike many resolutions, he kept it. The hard-edged drill instructor slowly transformed into a calm, patient teacher whose soft-spoken style became his signature. In many ways, The Joy of Painting wasn't just a show, it was the record of a man completely reinventing himself. 2. The 28-minute painting miracle. At first glance, the format of The Joy of Painting seems almost impossible. In less than half an hour, Bob Ross would begin with a blank canvas and finish with a complete landscape. There were no lengthy breaks, no drying periods, and no elaborate editing tricks. Yet episode after episode, mountains, forests, lakes, clouds, and reflections appeared as if by magic. The key was the wet-on-wet painting technique Ross learned from artist Bill Alexander. Rather than waiting for layers of paint to dry, Ross applied fresh paint directly onto a wet surface. This allowed colors to blend effortlessly and enabled him to work quickly without interrupting the creative process. But creating a single painting wasn't the most impressive part. Several times each year, Ross traveled to Muncie, Indiana, where the show was recorded. Instead of filming one episode at a time, he often completed an entire 13-episode season in only 2 or 3 days. That meant producing 13 fully realized paintings in rapid succession, all while explaining each step to viewers. Mistakes weren't edited out. If a tree ended up larger than expected or a mountain shifted shape, Ross simply adapted and continued. Those moments reinforced one of the show's most enduring messages. Perfection isn't required to create something beautiful. Despite the demanding schedule, Ross never appeared rushed. His calm demeanor remained unchanged, proving that creativity, efficiency, and tranquility could exist side by side. 3. A lifetime of 30,000 paintings. Bob Ross estimated that he created approximately 30,000 paintings during his lifetime, a number so large it can be difficult to comprehend. Spread over 3 decades, that works out to more than one painting every single day. The television series alone accounted for an extraordinary amount of work. Of the show's 403 episodes, Ross painted in 381 of them, yet each televised painting represented far more effort than viewers realized. For every scene featured on the program, Ross typically created 3 separate versions. The first was a practice painting completed before filming. This allowed him to test the composition and identify any potential challenges. The second was the version audiences watched him create on camera. During these sessions, Ross often improvised, adjusted details, and responded naturally as he worked. The third version was produced after filming and photographed step by step for use in instructional books and educational materials. That process resulted in more than 1,100 paintings created specifically for the joy of painting alone. Beyond the series, Ross painted throughout his military years, taught workshops, conducted demonstrations, and produced artwork for students and collectors. The sheer volume of his output reflects a level of dedication often hidden behind his calm personality. While viewers saw a relaxed artist gently guiding them through landscapes, they were also witnessing the results of remarkable discipline and consistency. 4. The show that paid nothing and built an empire. Despite becoming one of public television's most recognizable programs, The Joy of Painting did not provide Bob Ross with a direct salary. In a 1990 interview, Ross explained that PBS productions were typically made without paying their hosts. At first glance, that sounds surprising. Hundreds of episodes, years of work, and no paycheck tied to the show itself. But Ross understood something many entertainers overlook. Visibility can be more valuable than direct income. Each episode did more than teach painting techniques. It also introduced viewers to the brushes, paints, books, and instructional systems connected to his growing brand. In practice, the show worked as a continuous demonstration of both art and teaching philosophy. Behind the scenes, Ross and his partners built a carefully structured business around that attention. Painting supplies carried his name, while aspiring instructors could enroll in certification programs designed to teach his methods in a standardized way. Becoming an official Bob Ross instructor required formal training and approved materials, creating a global network of educators connected to his approach. The real value of the series wasn't a television paycheck, it was trust. Week after week, viewers invited Ross into their homes and came to see him as a calm, reliable guide. When they decided to paint, many naturally turned to his products and programs. In a media world driven by loud advertising, Bob Ross quietly built an empire on calm delivery, consistency, and authenticity. 5. The budget perm that became a trademark. When most people picture Bob Ross, 3 things usually come to mind: his calm, soothing voice, the happy little trees, and that unmistakable head of curly hair. But that iconic hairstyle wasn't originally meant to become part of his identity. Before The Joy of Painting ever aired, Ross spent years traveling across the country teaching painting classes. Money was often tight, so he looked for small ways to save wherever he could. One of those areas was something most people wouldn't think twice about: haircuts. His solution was simple: get a perm. The idea was practical. A perm would last longer than regular trims, meaning fewer trips to the barber and a bit more money saved over time. What he didn't anticipate was just how dramatically it would change his appearance. His straight hair turned into a thick, rounded cloud of curls that framed his face in a way that was instantly recognizable. At first, it was just a cost-saving choice. Then, the show became popular. Suddenly, that curly silhouette was everywhere. On posters, paint sets, books, and television promos, people could recognize him instantly, even from a distance. Ironically, Ross reportedly wasn't a big fan of the hairstyle himself, but by then, it had become inseparable from his public image. Changing it would have confused viewers and disrupted the brand they had come to trust, so the perm stayed. And in a very Bob Ross way, a simple attempt to save money ended up becoming one of television's most iconic and accidental trademarks. 6. The hidden math behind happy little trees. Bob Ross painted by instinct, not by numbers. But years after the show ended, someone decided to see what the numbers might reveal. In 2014, data journalist Walt Hickey analyzed every painting created on The Joy of Painting. Instead of using brushes and paint, he used spreadsheets and statistics to track which elements appeared most often. The results confirmed what longtime viewers probably already suspected. Trees dominated Ross's world. They appeared in roughly 91% of all paintings, making them by far the most common feature in the series. And true to Ross's philosophy, trees rarely stood alone. If one tree appeared in a painting, there was an overwhelming chance another would soon join it. Mountains showed up in about 39% of episodes. Clouds appeared in nearly half. Lakes, rivers, and other bodies of water were also common sights. What was surprisingly rare was evidence of people. Cabins, chimneys, or signs of human activity appeared in only a small fraction of the paintings. Even then, they were usually tucked away among towering forests or nestled beside streams, dwarfed by the surrounding landscape. The analysis didn't uncover a secret formula. Instead, it highlighted how consistent Ross's artistic instincts were. Again and again, he returned to the same themes: nature, solitude, and peaceful wilderness. The numbers simply put data behind something viewers had always felt. In Bob Ross's world, nature was the main character, and people were just passing through. 7. The only person Bob Ross ever painted. Across hundreds of episodes of The Joy of Painting, Bob Ross filled his canvases with mountains, rivers, forests, cabins, and vast open skies. Yet one subject is almost completely absent from his work: people. In fact, during the entire run of the series, Ross painted only a single human figure himself. That rare moment appears in Season 3's episode Campfire. Near the end of the painting, a lone cowboy silhouette stands beside a glowing fire. There are no facial details, no defined features, and no expressive emotion. Just the faint outline of a person quietly existing within the landscape. And that remains the only human figure Ross ever painted on the show. Guest artists and his son Steve occasionally included people in their own demonstrations, but Bob Ross almost always avoided them. There were practical reasons for this. His wet-on-wet technique worked best with natural scenery, where changes could be made easily. Trees reshaped, mountains softened, clouds blended without stress. People were different. Faces demanded precision, and even a small mistake in an eye or mouth could change everything. Ross admitted he never felt fully comfortable with that level of detail, as it didn't fit his relaxed style. More importantly, leaving people out had a purpose. It allowed viewers to place themselves inside the scene. Instead of watching someone else's story, they could imagine standing by the water, walking through the trees, or resting in a quiet cabin. In that way, the empty spaces weren't missing anything. They were invitations. 8. The episode that proved color isn't everything. One day, Bob Ross received a letter from a viewer who believed painting was out of reach because he was colorblind. Instead of offering a simple reply, Ross chose to respond in the most Bob Ross way possible, by creating an entire episode around the idea. The result was shades of gray. Rather than using the bright greens, blues, and reds viewers expected, he worked almost entirely in muted tones. By mixing white, blue, and brown, he demonstrated how a painting could still feel complete, using value, contrast, and composition instead of full color. As the episode progressed, snow-covered mountains, misty hills, and reflective water gradually emerged from the canvas. The final scene was just as striking as any of his colorful landscapes. Ross wasn't trying to prove a point with flair. He was simply showing another way to see. Throughout, he stayed calm and matter-of-fact, treating it like any other painting session. No speeches, no drama, just steady demonstration. For the viewer who wrote in, it was a direct answer. For everyone else, it was a quiet reminder that limitations often become possibilities when approached with patience and creativity. 9. Peapod the Squirrel and Bob Ross's animal rescue side. Long before Bob Ross became famous for painting peaceful forests and mountain landscapes, he had a deep affection for the animals that lived in them. Growing up in Florida, he often rescued injured wildlife and brought them home to care for. His compassion started early, and one childhood story stands out. He once raised a baby alligator in his family's bathtub. That love for animals continued into adulthood. Fans of The Joy of Painting occasionally met a small squirrel named Peapod. Between brushstrokes, Ross would gently hold, feed, or comfort her, creating some of the show's most heartwarming moments. Peapod wasn't a mascot. She was a rescued animal recovering under his care. Once healthy, she was released back into the wild. Later, another squirrel was named Peapod Jr., and a baby great horned owl named Hoot also appeared on the show. Off camera, Ross and his wife quietly cared for injured wildlife on their Florida property, asking for no attention. The kindness he showed on screen reflected how he lived every day. 10. When Deadpool became Bob Ross. By 2017, Bob Ross had been gone for more than 2 decades, but his influence was still showing up in unexpected places. One of the funniest examples came with the first teaser for Deadpool 2, released online under the title Wet on Wet. Instead of opening with action or explosions, it began with Ryan Reynolds dressed as Bob Ross, curly wig, blue shirt, paint-covered palette, and easel included. For a few moments, Reynolds perfectly imitated Ross's calm, soothing delivery. He spoke in the same gentle rhythm, painted a peaceful landscape, and delivered the kind of soft, reassuring commentary fans instantly recognized. Then, of course, it turned into Deadpool. The calm painting session quickly collapsed into jokes, fourth wall breaks, and a chaotic burst of explosions and gunfire. That contrast made the parody even stronger. It worked because Bob Ross had become a cultural icon. His voice and style were instantly recognizable even decades later, needing no explanation. The teaser went viral, proving something surprising. A soft-spoken painter from public television could still anchor a major Hollywood marketing campaign. Not bad for a man known for happy little trees. 11. The brand that ended up everywhere. Bob Ross probably never imagined that one day people would be making breakfast with his face on it. Yet somehow, that's exactly what happened. Over the years, his image has appeared on everything from coffee mugs and desk accessories to garden planters, socks, board games, and even officially licensed toasters. Yes, real toasters that imprint his face onto slices of bread, complete with his signature hair and beard. It's unusual, but fans genuinely embraced it. In a way, it makes sense. Ross's image became shorthand for comfort, calm, and nostalgia. People don't just remember the paintings, they remember how he made them feel. That emotional connection helped his presence expand far beyond art supplies and instructional books into everyday objects with no connection to painting at all. The toaster isn't really the story. The story is how a quiet, public television painter became a lasting pop culture icon. Decades after his final episode, people still find ways to bring a little Bob Ross into daily life, and it's easy to imagine him quietly amused by all of it. 12. The voice that helped millions fall asleep. During the original run of The Joy of Painting, Bob Ross received an unusual kind of fan mail. Many viewers wrote to say they often fell asleep while watching the show. For most television hosts, that might have sounded like criticism, but Ross saw it as a compliment. In interviews, he explained that people told him his calm voice and gentle teaching style helped them unwind after long, stressful days. Some even admitted they rarely stayed awake long enough to see the final painting. Rather than feeling insulted, Ross seemed genuinely pleased that the show brought comfort. The paintings were only part of the experience. His slow, steady speech, soft brush sounds, and constant reassurance that mistakes could become happy accidents created an atmosphere of complete ease. Years later, this calming effect was formally recognized. In 2018, recordings of Ross's voice were licensed for sleep and relaxation content, introducing his narration to new audiences. Long before ASMR became mainstream, Bob Ross had already created something similar. For millions, The Joy of Painting was not just art, it was comfort and a quiet way to fall asleep. 13. The Twitch revival and the unfinished season. Most television shows gradually fade from memory once their creator is gone. The Joy of Painting, however, followed a very different path. After Bob Ross passed away in 1995, the series continued airing around the world, reaching audiences far beyond its original PBS home. Viewers in places like Japan, Germany, Mexico, and South Korea connected with its simple message. Creativity is universal, patience matters, and mistakes can become something beautiful. Then, in 2015, Ross reached an entirely new generation in an unexpected way. The streaming platform Twitch, best known for live gaming content, marked what would have been his 73rd birthday by airing every episode of The Joy of Painting in a continuous marathon. What began as a novelty quickly turned into a global event. Millions of viewers tuned in, and the live chat filled with references to happy little trees, favorite paintings, and shared nostalgia. The response was so strong that Twitch made it a recurring tradition, hosting annual Bob Ross marathons that introduced his work to younger audiences who had never seen the original broadcasts. The story took another surprising turn in 2024. 7 unfinished paintings Ross had prepared for a planned season had remained in storage for nearly 3 decades. Certified instructor Nicholas Hankins was chosen to complete them for a new PBS project, carefully working in Ross's original style and philosophy. Rather than replacing him, the project served as a continuation of his vision. Nearly 30 years after his death, Bob Ross continues to inspire new artists and comfort new viewers. His legacy remains unusually alive for a television figure. Outro. And those were 13 fascinating facts about the joy of painting and the extraordinary life of Bob Ross. From his years as a military drill sergeant to his famous perm, his love of rescuing wildlife, and his lasting impact on popular culture, Ross left behind much more than a television show. His message of patience, creativity, and finding beauty in mistakes continues to inspire people around the world. Which fact surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, watch more of our classic TV deep dives, and subscribe for more.